Our next step when creating the hood is to put the two pieces of the hood with right sides together, one inside the other. So I've here got my black one with the right side facing up here, and my grey, which is going to be my outer layer, facing downwards. So my two right sides are together, and I'm actually going to join, make sure that two top seams join together, and I should be able to nest those seams in nicely because one will be going to one side and the other will be going to the other side where I've top stitched them. So we can put a few pins around this. Now we want to always make sure we push and pull our fabrics. We be the boss of the fabrics to make sure that our edges of our seams are really up and flush with one another. You don't want one sitting down lower than the other. And that will go all the way around to there. If you find that one sits a little bit shorter than the other, that might be because you've currently got one on the top. If I sort of turned it the other way, they would ease and go more together. So don't worry too much about that because we can give that a little bit of a trim later on, or we can also just push them up to each other and allow for a little bit of excess to be on the inside part of the hood. That's always going to be the case when you've got one thing that's going inside the other, because this one's having to take up that slightly bigger circumference area, but it's a very subtle amount. So I'm going to be stitching all the way around here with a normal seam allowance. So leaving this bottom edge, but just stitching around this edge. So now I have my hood sewn together along here. You can see how it looks from there with the stitch going all around here and all around on the other side as well. Now, this is where if you are wanting to put in a drawstring, you will need to put some eyelets in. If you are not doing a drawstring, your next step will be turning it to the right side. Now I'm going to be having mine this way, so my hood will be like this. Now I'm going to slightly, what we call, roll my seam allowance to the black side or to my inside of my hood. So you can see how you can see a little bit of grey. I don't want too much, just a really little bit of grey along there. And I'm going to do this the whole way along. I'm making sure I'm pulling out the seam so that it's nice and opened out, but then slightly rolled. I know it's going to be hard to see because I've got a grey fabric against a grey table. If I put this on here, you'll be able to see the grey a little bit more. So I slightly roll it so there's a tiny bit of grey showing to the inside, and I'm going to pin along here. Now you're going to be doing a top stitch. So again, a top stitch is visible on the good side of your fabric, so you really want to take care to do it all in one stitching line so you don't have multiple start and stop points where you've had to come in and back stitch several times. You also want to make sure you're being really careful to follow your correct guidelines the whole way along, and being really consistent with where you put this stitch and being very neat and straight with it. So you'll do that the whole way around, including going around to this side, and the top stitch will go all the way around, including going over that bit of seam allowance there. Pinning along here, rolling it out. That's a one pin. Let's try another one. Now you're going through, depending on exactly where you put your pins, you might be going through 4 layers of fabric with these pins and with your sewing as well. If you are putting in an eyelet, you'll definitely, when you come back to do this step, so if you're putting an eyelet in, you'll do your eyelet next. So you'll go and watch a separate video for that, and I'll do demonstrations in class. But when you come back to this step after putting in your eyelet, if you're doing eyelets and drawstring, you'll need to make sure that you do this stitch. It's a little hard to see here, sorry. You'll need to make sure you do this stitch a bit further into the fabric. If you're not doing an eyelet and drawstring, you actually have the choice exactly where you do this stitch. You could choose to do this stitch quite close to the edge here, or you could choose to do it a little bit further in along here. Again, this is a design choice. Now you might want to reference where some of your other top stitches are sitting. So I've got a top stitch sitting really close there, so maybe I would like to do it that distance. I could also look at where my top stitching is on my pocket. So if I sort of look at my pocket and go, well, actually I've left quite a big distance here with my top stitch, I could use that and sort of mirror image that a little bit on here. So do a bigger one. So you'll go and top stitch this around the whole way, making sure that you turn that fabric as you go. But if you are going to put a drawstring in, you need to go and watch a separate video now that will show you the step for doing the drawstring.